Today in this video, Khamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns agreed to a rematch in Brazil, and Khamzat Chimaev doesn't get a title shot with Alex Pereira at UFC 283. In Rio de Janeiro, he's ready to fight Gilbert Burns. According to another post by Boers on social media, his fight against reigning division champion Alex Pereira could take place on December 10th at UFC 282 in Las Vegas. The Wolf actively provokes the newly minted champion, but the owner of the belt is in no hurry to accept the challenge of Chimaev. And also, Chimaev boldly answered Francis Ngannou and stood up for Dana White. Chimaev did not remain silent and called on Ngannou to remember his past, as well as to evaluate the contribution of the organization to the success of the Cameroonian. And also in this video, Chimaev continues to keep fit in anticipation of a future fight. He shared photos from training with his subscribers, so this episode will be very interesting. But if you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. So let's go. As you already know, Chimaev previously announced that he was ready to fight Pereira on January 21st at UFC 283 in Rio de Janeiro. But while it is not clear whether there is any specifics behind Chimaev's statements, the possibility that the UFC is going to return Pereira to the octagon in less than a month looks extremely doubtful. Pereira is unlikely to risk the belt like that and take more time to prepare for such a challenge. Therefore, Khamzat did not wait long and began to set the stage for another potential fight. Surprisingly, as a target, Chimaev chose the one who was closest to defeating the Wolf. Boers took a risky move and challenged Gilbert Burns. If Alex is not ready to be killed, let's do it again. This time in Brazil and in middleweight. The opponent's answer arrived almost instantly. At any weight, Khamzat, he answered the Brazilian. In April of this year, Khamzat Chimaev won his 5th consecutive victory in the UFC, defeating Gilbert Burns by unanimous decision after 3 competitive, spectacular rounds. After that, Burns did not return to the octagon, and Chimaev scored another victory, finishing by choke in the first round of Kevin Holland. Note that Gilbert Burns remains the only opponent of Khamzat Chimaev, whom Boers failed to defeat ahead of schedule. Gilbert forced Chimaev to almost completely abandon the fight and act on the stand. And in one of the exchanges, Burns was as close as possible to a knockout, but the Wolf survived and showed everyone his character of a real fighter. As a result, the fight went the whole distance in 3 rounds, and Khamzat Chimaev won by unanimous decision of the judges. But the Chechen was very dissatisfied. So unless unforeseen circumstances interfere, then on January 21st at the UFC 283 tournament in Brazil, it will be very hot.
Everybody, I come here for everybody, kill everybody, I'm the champ, I'm the king, get everybody.
Agreed that this is the fight that millions of fans would watch. Beating one of the most difficult opponents in a career on foreign territory is a great image move, and after such a victory, it will be much easier to put pressure on Alex Pereira. If Chimaev defeats Gilbert Burns, the Brazilian fans will demand Alex Pereira to take revenge on the defiant Wolf. And yet Chimaev is now taking a very big risk. So far, he has fought only in the UAE and the USA. Now he has to build all his preparation for the duel on the new continent. You cannot write off the factor of home stands. The crazy support of the Brazilian public can charge Burns to win. But this time, I am sure that Chimaev will no longer make the same mistake. So, we are waiting for this great fight. And Chimaev continues to keep fit in anticipation of future performances and shared photos from training with subscribers. The photos show that Chimaev is in very good shape. As you know, Chimaev knows how to draw attention to himself. He is increasingly involved in high-profile stories. This time, he responded harshly to Francis Ngannou himself. The Cameroon Predator is the reigning heavyweight champion of the organization, but he still continues to criticize the contracts of UFC fighters. Ngannou addressed Dana White and the organization directly several times. Francis even stated that the promotion does not want to take care of its athletes. There are many things that the fighters do not want to talk about, and the organization is silent. For us, sponsors are a huge source of income, but the company uses them only in its own interests. It's not just about money. I am also not satisfied with the terms of the contract. Khamzat Chimaev did not remain silent and stood up for Dana and the UFC. He urged Ngannou to reflect on his past, as well as appreciate the contribution of the organization to the success of the Cameroonian. You see, I appreciate what Dana White and the UFC are doing for me. A lot of fighters say the promotion doesn't make them good money and stuff like that, but look who you were a year, 2 or 3 years ago. Don't forget about it. Personally, I was practically homeless. This guy, Francis Ngannou, he says he doesn't get much money from the UFC, but at the same time reveals that he used to live on the streets. But why don't you live there now? You have to appreciate what you have. Just fight. The money will come. I 100% agree with Khamzat. Many UFC superstars came to the organization at difficult times in their lives. The UFC helped them write a beautiful professional history. And for Boris himself, a career in the UFC is a matter of a lifetime. And not only Chimaev, most fighters should thank Dana White for everything they have. Remember who they were when they came to the UFC. Starting with Conor, everyone knows his story well. He came to conquer America with a few $100s in his pocket. Today, he has several $100 million in his account. Though remember Charles Oliveira, Leon Edwards, where did they come from, who they were, and who they have become now? And Ngannou himself. A few years ago, he lived on the street, and he did not even have money for food. But everyone forgets about it. As Chimaev says, we need to appreciate what we have. Just fight, the money will come. They prefer one fight a year and still want to make millions of dollars. Fight often and the money will come. And you, the fighters, will be fine, and we, the fans, will be fine. So therefore, I agree with Chimaev. What do you all think of this? Write your thoughts in the comments. So that's all for today, and if you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.